Hello again, time for another project. Today we're going to route out this pug dog with some flowers over its head there. The idea, we're going to route out all the white sections, basically leaving all the black, and then we'll cut it out on a nice scroll saw. We'll talk about that nearer the time. And all the routed out areas we're going to fill in with some nice resin mixed with acrylic paints. Now today we're going to do it on a 12mm plywood. This is basically just a hardwood plywood you get from your local DIY store. And I've routed out on it before, and I was surprised how nice it actually routes out. So we've got no issues with that. Hopefully, there are smaller sections in the middle here we've got to be a bit careful of. And the odd time we'll have the little chip out, so you have to be a bit careful with those smaller sections. So we'll go a bit delicate around there. We can always nibble at it afterwards with the engraving bit on a Dremel when we come to tidy up. So as always for me, we've printed it out on just standard printed paper. I use an online site called Rasterbaiter. It's a strange name, I know, but you can go on there and print them off as big as you like, and it has little markers so you can fit it all together. Now this one didn't actually fit, to be honest. I've had to put a piece of paper down the middle there and do the rest with a felt tip. There's actually a gap down there, so it didn't print off so good on this one, but we got what we wanted. So we've stuck it down on our 12mm plywood. I've gone around with a pen. We've got our carbon paper underneath and literally just trace the image onto there. It's all part of the process for me. Some people like to use different methods, and there is different methods to use for transferring your images. But for me, you can see from that, that's plenty for what we need. And I literally went around with a pen just to mark off the areas we want to remove. Because you'll get so into your project, you'll go away, come back and start routing out one of these sections. Well, that's the end of your project, finished. Normally I use pencil, but I have found out as I'm going around, I tend to rub the pencil away, so just a little biro today. So a couple of minutes, and you can see from that, all these sections that have got the blue on are what are we going to route out today. Hopefully we say. I say we've never had any issues. I'm sure there's always a first time. Right, for the bits, as always for me, is CNC bits. You get a pack of 10 in there like that for next to nothing off eBay or Amazon. They come with different degrees on, and that's basically the angle of the cut on the end here. If that would just going for us. There we go. This is a 15. So it's quite a straight edge on it. Well, 15 degrees edge on it, to be honest. Because it doesn't matter about any angle, because we are going to fill it all in with resin. Just enough so we can fill the top of the routed out area. On some resin projects, you can overflow deliberately, sand it all flush, and then pour a load of resin over the top, or a nice spray varnish, and that would be a project done. But I still like to go over the top with my fingers and be able to feel where the routed out areas have been. These have a 3.175mm shaft on them, so you're wanting an adapter collet, which is that one there, 6.35mm. Basically it's just a tube with a thicker neck on it, and you slide your CNC bit into there. That will now fit a 1/4 inch router shank. If you've got one that's an 1/2 inch router, you're obviously going to need a bigger reducer collet. So we'll pop that in the router. We'll set it to 3mm, which is literally the same thickness as your CNC bit. And I will do all the lines with this. A lot of these little smaller areas, like inside the nose area, I'll just remove that with the CNC bit, I would imagine. And these smaller sections inside the eyes. But once we've done all our line works, remember this we're called inset. We're going inside, so you just want to be up to that line. I never route out on the line unless the project calls for it. Once we've done all our lines, whatever bits we've got left, these larger sections, we'll pop on one of our end milling bits. They have the same size shaft on them, remember, 3.175. We'll get one that we can fit into these smaller areas and simply remove the CNC bit, pop that back in there, up to that little barrier. They do come without the barrier now, so you might struggle to find them with that barrier, but they are exactly the same bit. And we'll set it to our 3mm again. Some of these will be routed out, so we put it in the router, set it on top, and basically remove all the blue section. Once that's all nicely done, we'll have a little tidy up, and obviously we'll cut it out with a Pegasus spiral blade. I'll show you that obviously near the time. And then we'll either put a bit of stain on it or spray it black, and then we'll go ahead and just fill it all in with resin, and then we're heading towards the finishing line. But for now, we're popping our CNC bit. We'll set it to 3mm. I do have a little gauge here somewhere. There's our little gauge, 3mm. We'll put that in the router, sit it on top of there, and that's plenty deep enough for routing out and popping your resin in. Obviously this is made of layers put together, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 roughly, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 layers. Hopefully we'll get down to that second layer with our 3mm like so. Okay, let's start routing this one out. Okay, so we've made it all the way round with that 15-degree CNC bit. That come out no problem. It was like cutting into butter, to be honest. I was really impressed with this one. Some plywood woods can be a little bit worse than others. And even our small bits down here, we've had nothing popping out of yet. So far, so good, as we say. You notice there I've took certain sections out just as we've gone along, and that come out really easy just with the CNC bit. And if all you have is that little bit, you could certainly do the full project. It will just take you longer to route out your bigger areas, obviously. So that's it for the CNC one, as we say. So it's just a simple case of removing that. You will get a lot more projects out to that one, that is for sure. And we're going to pop on one of these end milling bits. Remember, they have the same size shaft, 3.175mm. So you will need the adapter collet again. And we'll pop that in the router. Set it to any of these that we've already removed. So that one there, which should be about 3mm, hopefully. Put the router on there, set it that depth, and basically just remove all the remaining sections that have coloured with a bit of blue on. We shall do that next. Right, we've made it all the way round with those end milling bits. No issues whatsoever, and everything is still intact. They are nice because they give you a fairly smooth base here, as well as doing the sides as well. So far, so good. The next stage now, we're literally going to cut it out first on a scroll saw with a Pegasus number 5 spiral blade, and then we'll come in and give it a little tidy up with the engraving bits. I use these eBay special things, just cheap eBay. You get a packet of 30, I think it's about 30, and they have different ends on them, pointed round, and I like to get one with a nice flat bottom like so. And let's just pop that on the end of a flexi cable, and that simply attaches to the end of my Dremel, and we can go in and just give it a little general tidying up. Basically just get into these little tight areas and just give it all a nice clean out. We don't have to focus too much on the bottom, remember. We are going to fill this all in with resin, as long as the top piece is okay. Then obviously a little bit of sandpaper. We'll go a little bit of delicate, just to get rid of those pencil lines. But like I say, before that we were going to cut it out on a scroll saw. There's my old draper behind. This one came off Noah's Ark, and I got my Pegasus number 5 spiral blade set in on the adapter clamps, because my scroll saw is a pin blade only, so you all need adapter clamps. I'll show you those now. These ones I use, you get one top and bottom, and they have a little Allen key on the side. You just come with an Allen key, and you get your pinless blade, slot it into that hole, and literally just tighten up your Allen key. It's top and bottom, and that becomes more or less a pin blade now, because that's your pin at the top. Just another option. If you are thinking of purchasing a scroll saw, ideally look for one that takes pinless blades. But if not, on the cheaper ones, you will need some kind of conversion kit or a different type of adapter. Like the blade for me, I do like to use is a spiral blade. They are spiraled in all directions, if you can see that. So you can cut in any direction you want. Sorry, the spiral is full length of the blade. These want to feel smooth on the way down and rough and jagged on the way up. That way you know your blade's in the right way. And we can cut that basically without moving that wood too much. If we come in here at the bottom, we can just feed that across and just go around like that without turning that wood the once. Whereas the other two blades, which are pinned and pinless, here's a pin blade. They come on your new, your older saws, your more basic saws, and they do have a pin at either end. And like I say, they just clamp onto a clamp, top and bottom, teeth towards you. They also want to be smooth on the way down, rough on the way up. And on your more fancier saws, they do a pinless blade. You might just see that. There we go. And they have clamps that clamp it to the top, clip it to the bottom. They're ideal for small detailed cuts. If you imagine on here, we wanted to cut this out on a scroll saw, and we wanted to get into that little groove there, you do a pilot hole, feed your little pin blade in, and you could cut that section out, no problem whatsoever. Whereas if your scroll saw just takes pin blades, you're not going to fit into that gap because the pin will be in the way. So adapter clamps, there is many variations, but this is the one I use myself. And if you search Draper adapter clamp online, there's Axminster, there's a different options for you, but it's entirely up to you what your sword takes. Right, we've got our Pegasus in, like I say, Pegasus number 5 spiral. We'll literally cut this out, and then we'll come back with our little engraver, sandpaper, and then be ready for painting or staining. Let's cut this one out first. Right, that's all nicely sanded down. We've cleared it all out. And we use a bit of sandpaper on the sides here. Just get our little noddlies off the back, as we call them. So that's it. That's all we can do with this project for now. As regards to the machinery side of things, all now is a simple case of going to paint all this and literally fill it with resin mixed with acrylic paint. And this little project will be heading towards the finishing line. Now, normally I use Painter's Touch paints. It's a little bit embarrassing. I've literally had to walk down into my local town and I just can't find it anywhere. So apart from ordering it offline, I normally have a nice tin full of this Painter's Touch black, and I'll just paint the full piece with that, and I've used it on numerous projects with no issues. I think there's about a quarter each in one of those, so I'm getting desperate. So I have found some more black spray, and that's about empty. This really is embarrassing for me. And a bit of black spray there that we used on a previous project. So I'm just going to spray it first, let that all soak in nicely, let it cover the full piece, and then I'll just salvage whatever black I can from these two. We'll add a bit of water in, and hopefully we can just cover the whole lot if the spray paint itself doesn't look so clever. Now I've sprayed a bit on a bit of sample here just to see, and it covers it nice enough, but it's just a little bit dull, so we'll still have to spray the varnish on afterwards. And that was the other piece there, you can just see. So we might just spray it first, see how it dries, and then hopefully, he says, we'll have enough of that black paint, the Painter's Touch ones, just so we can at least finish this project off. And I'll get my act together and order some more. Now, plywood routs out fine, this 12mm. I have no issues with it, but I do tend to go all the way round, and you just might find the odd little void, little hole, and there's one there, look. So we need to fill that in, and funny enough, it actually goes right through the piece, and there's a little hole there. So a bit of woodwork glue, get yourself a bit of sawdust. You'll have plenty kicking about on your table. Mix a bit in, and you can just fill that in. Or I just tend to have just a cheap wood filler. So I'll fill this in first, just rub it straight in, quick sanding down, and then we'll get onto the painting side of things. We'll go with the spray first, and then we'll finish off with a Painter's Touch. Right, we filled our little holes in at both sides there. Takes a matter of seconds, and that's near enough what I want. I'm not even bothered letting it dry properly. Literally seconds afterwards, we're going to go in for the spray straight away. So like I say, we're going to try a bit of spray first. I don't think it's going to be shiny. I do prefer to paint and brush, but I'm basically just trying to get all my stocks down. So we'll do the full piece with this. I will go outside with this with a lot more fresh air. So we'll do the full piece, and depending on what it looks like, we'll decide if we're going to go over the top with the whatever's left in there of Painter's Touch paints. Now when I spray, I'll just spray the full piece. There's no good thinking we can just paint the top bit. I have done stainers before that's gone down the side pieces. We want them side bits to do, remember, because when we come in with our resin, we're not going to fit it right to the top. It's going to be just slightly off the top, just so you can still go over with your fingers and feel out the routed out area. So obviously we don't want a nice black top and then clear wood showing on the side bit, and then we'll reach to the resin itself. So we've got to get these side walls all done, and it's a simple case of just spraying the full piece. Like I just said there, I did have stain on ones, and I come down the sides and I had a little bit on the bottom there when I put my resin in, because the colour wasn't thick enough, and it would have been ideal if it had all been proper covered. You could actually see the stain through the resin. So to play safe, we basically just do the full piece. And I'm hoping there's going to be some left in here so we can spray it like so. When we come back, hopefully this will look better and ready to fill in with our resin. Okay, so I've sprayed 3 or 4, if not more, coats of black, just letting it dry in between, and to be honest, that will do. So there's no need to come in with the Painter's Touch. There's nothing else needed on this. We've got a nice shine to it, as you can see from that. So I'm not even going to spray any varnish on. Now that's the first for me on my little project. The sides, maybe we could have put on a bit of Painter's Touch paint on there just to seal them. But I'm quite happy the way things are, so I'm just going to leave this as it is. So spray paint worked fine again. Only the second time I've used it, and it's It's working in our favour at this moment in time. So all we need to do now is literally just fill this up with resin mixed with acrylic paint. We'll get some nice pinks. It is a female pug dog. Is this one called Daisy, I believe? I just think there. So we're going to put some nice pink flowers in there. Get the leaves done. I have no idea what colour this dog is. I'm making this for a friend of mine. So I'm going to go the standard puggy colour, if that makes sense, with the black nose. We'll put some whiteness in the eyes and in the claws along there. And we'll just go mad with this one. Just fill it in, make it nice and colourful. And like I said, we're not going to fill to the top. So once all that resin is all nicely cured and no air bubbles, hopefully, this little project will be finished, apart from putting a little hanger on the back. Okay, let's go and find some resin. Just to mention, normally I do spray with varnish, like I say, to seal in the side walls, stop any bleeding. But I'm hoping that this paint that we sprayed on has actually sealed it all for us, so we've no need to seal it with anything. And to be honest, we're not coming to the top, so should it bleed, hopefully it'll bleed under the paint, if that makes sense. You try these things. If it don't work out, we know not to do it again next time round. Righto, let's go and find some resin. Okay, it's resin time. You can just about make out that dog there. So what we're going to do now is just literally fill this in with resin mixed with acrylic paint. And we're just going to, let's say 3/4 fill it, or nearly to the top, just enough so we can still feel that it's been routed out. So like I say, just acrylic paint for me. Bit of that mixed in with your resin, and it works fine for your colours. Now the resin today is Vista 1. Nice, brand new, just had a nice delivery. Still got a sealed top on this. Resin comes in 2 parts. You've got A, your resin, and B, your hardener. And this is a 1-to-1 mix. So basically, 1 part this to 1 part B. So whatever you use of A, amount wise, you want exactly the same as B, your hardener. And you just mix the 2 together, and hopefully you'll be good to go. Some resins are 2-to-1, 3-to-1. Some resins are deep pour resins. So just be careful. Some resins you actually mix by weight. So you weigh your A, weigh your B, and then mix the 2 together that way. So just check to make sure you get the right resins. Personally myself, I just use these little plastic party cups. They're ideal because they do have little grooves on the side. So I'll just count up, let's say 5 grooves of A, and obviously be 5 grooves of B. Mix them 2 together, and then we'll put some into a separate little cup. Add our bit of pink we're going to go for first. That says rose on there, but there's a pink somewhere. Sure there is. We'll add that in first, and then that'll be enough to do for 1 flower, and then we'll lighten it up a bit with a bit of white, and maybe go on to the next flower. And then once you run out of resin, we'll basically mix a little more. I wouldn't go mixing half a cup of one of those. By the time you've played about and mess and stuff, it might just be going off on you. But you have a good hour, excuse me, a good half an hour plus, depending on the temperature, to sort yourself out and have a little play with things. So I will mix this off camera. Mixing wise, I just use these cheap party cup spoons, forks. They're ideal because you can mix with that, and they also have a little scoop at the back there. That's just a scoop up and get into those tighter areas. Or I've seen folk use syringes. You can probably get the resin up with that. Personally, I tried it once. It's just too much of a mess for me. And then also these little plastic pipettes. You can cut the end off there, suck your resin up, and hopefully you can squeeze that into your little sections. So another option. But for me, just off the back of a spoon, we'll let it drip in, and then we'll use our cocktail stick just to go around and help it on its way. And for the really, really tight areas, remember we've got to get some resin into that nose section there. I'll just put it on the end of the cocktail stick. It's slow process, and just let it drip in like so. You'll see as we go along. Once it's all filled up, we'll get a nice lighter, skim over the top. That just helps release all the air bubbles, and then this little project will be finished. Okay, I'll mix our resins off camera, A and B, into our little A and B cups, and then when we come back, we'll be ready to add some acrylic paint and start filling this one in. Right, so we've mixed our resin up That's nothing too complicated there. Obviously we've got too much here for the moment, but I'm hoping to get all 3 flowers out of this. So we've simply just got to transfer a bit into another cup. Not too much. And it'll be more than plenty. And that will sit to one side till we're ready to do our next flower. I'm just simply going to add a bit of acrylic paint. This one's about empty, so we do have a backup one there. You don't need a lot. They do say 10% of whatever volume you're mixing, but personally myself, I'll just pop in whatever falls in. Give it a nice mix around. And you can always try a little bit onto one side. If it doesn't look thick enough, you can just add a little bit more. That's still a little bit runny, so I want to pop a little bit more in there. We can squeeze it the last bit out of this tube. If not, we'll open the other one up. Right, let's see how we get on with that. Now obviously I won't film all this because it is really a slow process. It's just one of those projects that you can just take your time. Please put your mask on. You want some nice gloves on and plenty of ventilation. Some people can have quite a reaction to resin, should you get it on your skin and stuff, and you don't want to be breathing it in, to be honest. So get that nice ventilation going and you're good to go. So that looks near enough, should we say, for what we want. Apologise for the lighting in here. Hopefully when we go back down to the little shed, things will look a lot better. So we can just scoop a little piece like that, a little bit, and then we just drop that into one of our petals there. And we can see what that looks like. You'll get a better view of this as we start filling it in. Got an air on there. There we go. You'll see as we fill this in, how those colours pop out a little bit better. I'm going to add a bit more acrylic to this, just off camera because I don't want to bore you too much of it. But eventually, I'll start moving it around. Just get your cocktail stick and feed it about, like so, should I say. Okay, we'll do fill this in, and then when we come back, we'll just skim over with a little lighter. Right, that's it. That's all nicely filled in. All we can do now is put it to one side for 24 hours. Get a nice cover over the top, a tray of some description. Because any dust or flies, they will find it, for sure. So we put this to one side, and when we come back, we'll be back down in the shed again. And this little project should be finished. Okay, that's it. This little project is finished. Now it's less than 24 hours later, and you can see from that everything's nice and solid. I will leave this for another 2 or 3 days just to make sure. In some resin groups and resin manufacturers, they do say you can take up to 30 days to fully cure. I think that's a little bit over the top, but I'm not a resin manufacturer. What do I know about things? And that's it. No bleeding whatsoever. Everything's worked out fine. Remember, this is just on 12mm plywood, so it started life like this, and it routs out really nice. I've certainly got no issues. Everything's gone to plan with our little CNC bits, remember, for the lines, and then we use our end milling bits for the clear outs. These are the bits that I use. There's profile bits out there, liner bits, spiral up cuts. Just depends on what you want to use and the size of your wallet to purchase them, for sure. But eBay or Amazon, I will put links in all those bits I use in the description, excuse me. And then once we've routed it all out, just a little spray with any black gloss we can find. Just spray the full piece, and that's obviously sealed it all nicely at the same time, because if we can get close enough, maybe there, we've got no bleeding whatsoever. Everything's gone nice. And remember, we haven't overfilled this, just enough to fill it all, so you can actually still go around with your hands, fingers, and realise it's been routed out like so. And that's it. And obviously it's 16 inches by just short of 10 inches high. So pug dog with fancy flowered headdress, headset should I say, routed out on 12mm plywood, inlaid with Vista 1 resin mixed with acrylic paint. And that's it. This little project is finished. Thank you very much for watching.